Hello and welcome to Tokyo Inklings. My name is CY and you can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram and TikTok at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob. I'm a Fudo fan on Instagram and on Twitter and on TikTok.
Excellent.
I have finally caved into peer pressure. I literally created an account just like hours ago, and the experience was exactly what I was expecting. And what I mean by that is that
Chaos?
Well, the first 4 videos were exactly sort of my stereotype of TikTok. In other words, like there was the dancing cosplayers.
Yeah.
It was atrociously bad financial advice. It was like a cute jumping dog or something, and then there was a scene from what I presume to be some Chinese or Korean drama.
Excellent. Well, I've given you a follow, so I think all of our listeners should also check out Fudefan on TikTok. And I gotta say, Jacob, you're really stepping up that video game, because we all know you as that amazing photographer. Your photos could be professional product photography, but now you've kind of added to your repertoire and increased more video output, I've noticed, in the past month.
Well, I still have absolutely no idea what I'm doing, but I'm enjoying it. So I'm just playing with short videos, and maybe one day I'll be good enough that I can make something longer and more substantial. But for now, you have to do with 15-second clips.
See, you can't say that to the rest of us plebs who don't even know how to operate a camera.
Well, I still don't really. I mean, like video is a whole different. I mean, photography, I think I've figured things out by now, but video is like a whole different world of, I'm sort of learning about like different color spaces and LUTs and different, bit rates, and I making the most stupid noob mistakes, but slowly and surely it's getting a little bit better every time. So I just need to get the first 100 terrible clips out of the way, and maybe I can do something more meaningful after that.
All right, that's fair. And we are episode 66, I believe. And it's been a while. I was on the Pen Addict podcast last week, so thank you to both Mike and Bradley Dowdy for having me on. That was a long podcast. It was like 90 minutes. And yeah, it was fun. So for those people who are interested, check it out, and shout out to them. Obviously, they've been doing this for a long time, so definitely recommend adding that to your list if you haven't already.
I haven't listened to the whole thing yet, but I got to the part where you're spending thousands of dollars on equipment and starting to think about how to make some money back on that.
Yeah, that was yeah, so still in the red, but it's good. It's good. I'm having fun along the way. But we've got some topics today, Jacob.
Yes.
So last time, this had already happened by the last time we did our recording, but we just had too many topics last time. I want to talk first a little bit about this Wagner event that happened just 2 weeks ago. Now, before we get into this Wagner event, I want to just maybe can we recap for the listeners what exactly is Wagner?
I'm sure we have talked about it numerous times, but it is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, pen club in Japan. I think it was started like 17 years ago. It was actually like a splinter group from another pen group.
Was that Fuente?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, exactly. I can't remember the origin story, but there is a blog post somewhere that explains the origins. But I think it's been around now for around 17 years. And, the boss, the club leader is Mr. Mori. By the way, it was like surreal to hear you talk to Drew on the Goulet Pencast about Morrison. It was like worlds colliding, like Goulet and Morrison. He is the one who runs this club in the sense that he is organizing all these meetups. So there are numerous meetups throughout the year. Some of them are in, they're all over Japan. Like I think there's one in Nagoya now. There's like a Sendai. I think there's a Hokkaido one. There's somewhere in Kyushu, and then there are a number of larger events around the Tokyo area. And the biggest event of the year is what's called the pen trading in Tokyo, which is around June. And then you also have the spring and autumn pen, whatever you call them. It's sort of slightly smaller version of that, effectively. And then there's the year-end quote-unquote bargain, but it's just another, like, it's exactly the same formula. And the event that was last week or the week before was the autumn pen show.
Yeah, and I think these Wagner events are probably much closer to these pen shows that we see in the West, in that they're kind of community organized. You don't have a lot of retailers. It's mostly individual vendors, and sometimes people are not even selling anything. They just, like, you can look, you can touch, but you can't buy. And I think Wagner used to be a lot more interesting because they had all sorts of people. I remember when, for example, Yupo paper started becoming popular. That was really first popularized at Wagner. These kind of homemade iron gall-inks, they came out of Wagner. Gary made a few iron gall-inks for Wagner. And of course, Wagner has done multiple exclusive pens with both Sailor, Pilot, and Platinum. So they are quite an influential group. And then out of Wagner, Mori-san has I'm not quite sure what kind of relationship it is, but he has an apprentice with a lady called Tomoko, who's opened a store, Likto, which maybe some of the listeners will know. So this is very much an enthusiast-run community. This is the closest to I think some of the communities that we have, or that is available in the US or even in Europe. Whereas the Tokyo International Pen Show, it's much more of a retailized event, and actually Wagner does. Oftentimes, they have a table there. So some of the people that you might see in a Wagner event might be, for example, Mr. Pilot. What's his actual name again? I only know him as Mr. Pilot. Nikura-san?
Nikura, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Usually at the bigger events, you have some pretty big names there. I mean, and Nagahara is a Wagner member. Pilots, pen doctors are Wagner members. Tsunami-san, who is probably Japan's most famous pen collector, who wrote books together with Lambro, the big, fountain pens of Japan. He is a Wagner member. It's basically like the celebrities in the pen world, pen community in Japan. They're all Wagner members. I mean, Betchori is also a Wagner member, for example.
Yeah. But I think those names that you just listed out, they used to come to Wagner much more often than now. So I think the past few times that we've been, it's mostly been Mori-san and then some others. But like, I don't think I've seen Nagara-san at a Wagner for years. I think the last time was the Butlaf shape, and I know they still collaborate, but his appearances is not as expected nowadays. And so it's a big group, but I think one of the criticisms that we had of Wagner is that Wagner groups always look exactly the same. They are old Japanese men who are, more or less in their 50s or 60s, or even sometimes up to 70s, 80s.
Mm.
And you didn't really have any kind of youth representation. I mean, you had women as well at Wagner, but very, very few. I'd say maybe 25%. And so it was not a very diverse group, so to say.
Mm. Part of that is that it is, like, if you don't know someone who is a member and goes to this event, it's really hard to find out where the events are and, where they are. And you talked about that. I mean, that was one thing you mentioned to Brad, right? it's hard to even find out about Wagner and where the events are, right?
Yeah, and it is quite intimidating if you are not, part of that demographic. I think it is intimidating to just go to a Wagner without your friends. And so that was one of the long-time criticisms that we had about Wagner, that it's just not a very diverse group.
Right.
Somehow, and normally, as you know, Jacob, I rarely go to these Wagner events anymore. But somehow, on the weekend that I came back, I was possessed to go to this Wagner event, and so I did, and Elsa also went, and we went a little bit after 12. We go in. The first table that we see are high school students. I'm like, well, that's interesting. So I go over to their table and just trying to see what they have. And two things. The first thing, they were trying to kind of sell to us, and I love seeing these high schoolers hustle, but they were trying to sell to us the Stillform, the Stillform ink pen. This is a pen that came to life through Kickstarter. It's apparently a collaboration between a Japanese manufacturer and a German manufacturer. But it's this pen which I think it has like might have been the one with like the membrane, the water membrane inside, so it keeps your pen wet. And they were very excited to show us these titanium nibs, and I thought it was pretty cool because these high schoolers, they need the difference between Bach, between Yovo, and it was refreshing. It was refreshing. So that was that, and they kind of assumed that we didn't know about Stillform because I think not a lot of people in Japan are really in tune with non-Japanese makers or the big brands.
You see a lot of advertisement for Stillform, but it's not really in what we would call like the fountain pen community. It's more like sort of trendy like stationery for like people who buy Kickstarter stuff, right?
Yeah. But it almost felt like there was some kind of a collaboration between Stillform and these high schoolers. And I went back and checked their Twitter afterwards. They're like, they're like Stillform Monitase. So I don't know, they're like, kind of, I don't even know what that means, to be honest. But it was very interesting to see these kids repping Stillform. The second thing which caught my eye was that they had these mini grinders, and they called them mini chichi. And these were grinders that you could assemble and disassemble very easily. They're meant for you to kind of just take on the road and like just grind and take to an event or something. And I thought it was really interesting because we previously talked about how grinding culture, or like nib grinding culture, is not really a thing in Japan. So to see these young kids take an interest to design and build these mini grinders, and they were selling these mini grinders, the wooden panel ones for about $100, and then they had a black aluminum one for about $300. To see them designing, selling them, they source the motors, they source all the parts, like that kind of creativity and really business acumen there, I thought was really, really sweet to see. And both Alessa and I, we both bought these mini grinders.
Ah, nice. Yeah, I heard about that from Alessa too. It's
Yeah.
I think she needs your help to assemble it.
Yes, we were thinking maybe we should ask Hiroko to do some lacquer on it. But yeah, so these were designed by a guy called on at least on Twitter, his name is @NibDestroyer, which I thought was really funny. And then he joined Instagram. His Instagram handle is NibCrasher.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. And he calls himself an apprentice nib worker. So I asked him, I said, hey, are you thinking of, kind of doing this seriously, or is it for fun? And he's like, oh yeah, it's kind of for fun, for now. But I think it's good. He's getting a real head start, and you don't just design and build this grinder for fun, right? So I'm very curious to see how he progresses kind of through his fountain pen journey. Maybe he's gonna take it more seriously, after graduation. I'm sure he's gonna, try to get a job at first, which I'll always recommend. But yeah, it was very encouraging, and I think this might sound some kind of a direction for the Japanese market. What do you think?
I'm not sure how much you can extrapolate for this, but it's promising, and it's encouraging if Mr. Mori is supporting them, because that's, I mean, to his credit, I mean, we criticizing Wagner for being like this Oyaji club, but to Mori-san's credit, he has been trying to keep up with trends, and I think some of that has to do with Tomoko.
Yep.
But Mori-san has been trying to reach out to like other parts of the community, and I think this is partially like his thanks to his efforts.
Yeah. And yeah, I agree. He's actually right now in Nagoya for the Tono Limbs event. So I think, credits to him for creating this and maintaining this for so long. Right? It's not easy to maintain a club for 17 years. But he actually made this thing that he called Student Island, where specifically it was for students to gather to like discuss and kind of just a place to hang out, and I do give him props for that. Another thing which I didn't tell you about, which was happening in San Francisco, is that I got to meet the good folks at Kenro Industry, and Kenro Industry are the owners of the Esterbrook brand. And we might have talked previously about Esterbrook and their collaboration with Addicted planner stickers. I think, yeah, Addicted planner stickers. So, in one of our very early episodes, we got a listener question. We got this listener question asking about who are some of these Instagrammers of Japanese stationery, and we pointed out to her, and we said this lady, she does these amazing time-lapse videos, and she only had 5,000 followers, and at the time I said that was criminal. Today she has 18.3k followers, and she's an Esterbrook ambassador, and Esterbrook has been putting a lot of efforts into kind of changing the way that, obviously not limited to Japan, but they were known back in the day in the vintage iteration to have a lot of different kinds of nibs, mostly steel nibs. So they had like flex nibs, they had stub nibs, blah 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 blah. They had like hundreds of different variations. So they're kind of trying to bring that back, and they're also, as part of that program, they are trying to bring it to Japan. So they are sending Addicted planner stickers, these special grinds. So she's got the journaler, she has the needlepoint, and what they're doing now, what they did at San Francisco Pen Shows, they actually went over to talk to Nagasawa to try to get these guys, I know they talked to Itoya as well, to try to get these guys more on board with these custom grinds and custom nibs, and maybe with a bigger push from an official like pen brand. Do you think that the market will be more susceptible to these custom grinds if it being given a push by a player like Esterbrook?
I think this is a continuation of discussion we had about Cyprus in the previous episode. I think this is really the same thing, as we see this proliferation of quote-unquote factory grinds other than your standard fine, medium, broad 1.1 stub. And I think there is a big I think there will be a big market for that. And just going back to what you said about these US pen shows, you talked about how all the nib grinders, that they were fully booked throughout all days of the shows. I think that shows that people do want these grinds, and there's just a lot of demand. And if you can just go buy it from your favorite retailer, rather than having to send something to a nib grinder and pay extra for that, then I definitely think this is a big market, potentially big market.
Yeah. So we'll see. I think if Nagasawa picks this idea up and starts pushing it to their customers, we could really see a kind of like a transformation in the way that the market thinks about these grinds to begin with, and hopefully we'll get more acceptance, more mainstream acceptance of custom grinds, even in the Japanese market. So I think everything is kind of coming together. We have these young people who are really interested in adjustments and grinds. We have brands who are coming in, trying to change the market, trying to change the environment. And then we have influencers who are actually showing off what these brands do. And I think that is the recipe that we need to bring what is already a pretty incredible market, kind of bring that to the next level.
I want to go back a bit to this nib grinding setup that the high school students worked on, because I sort of related to that. I get the impression that some nib grinders consider like the construction of like a custom nib grinding tool to be like a part of their training. So it's like a Jedi making their own lightsaber as part of their training, right? You have like Nagahara has his own bespoke thing. Masayama also has his own bespoke thing. I think Padawan, I can't remember what his name is, but Padawan also, I mean, he trained with both of them, so he probably learned a thing or two from them, but he also has his own like bespoke setup. Are you of the impression that that is sort of something a nib grinder should be able to do, like construct their own very like bespoke nib grinding tool, or should be able to just use some off-the-shelf Dremel or whatever?
Yeah. So I guess, disclosure in advance, I use an off-the-shelf Dremel and a lot of off-the-shelf tools. And the reason why I do that is because it's easy to find replacements. It's easy to find the parts, and you don't have to worry about, your favorite supplier is going out of business, so, well, you can't get whatever grit you need to get anymore, right? I think that's the challenge with these more bespoke options. And the second thing that I think a lot of these bespoke tools are, they're very cool. They're very cool. I'm using this mini Chichi, and it's nice. One of the challenges is I cannot see the contact point between the nib and the grinding material because it's faced away from me.
I see.
And so there are ways to reverse the direction of the motor. It's actually fairly easy, but then you're grinding then from the bottom, which I also think is kind of weird, because then you can't see the top of whatever you're grinding, and that's just not how most nib grinders work.
Right.
So I actually prefer, when I'm using this mini Chichi, I like to turn it to the side so that I can look at the grinding material as well. And then with the Dremel, with the freeform tool, it's easier to change my angle. I feel like I have more freedom and more control over it. So I think the bench grinder, this custom bench grinder, it's great for if you're doing just like stubs, italics, or whatever. It's great for that. But then if you're doing something more complex, then you're gonna run into some limitations. I think it's not an invalid way of thinking, but I do think that is a little bit of an old school style. And I think the most important thing is whatever works for you. Some people, if they have the bench grinder, they might not be able to sit for hours at a time in that same position, right? Or for example, I know that Annabelle from Appleboom, she uses a microscope, so you wouldn't necessarily be able to do that. Kirk has the overhead magnifier, right? So I think it really depends on how you want to work and what your best setup is. Of course, having the bench grinder there makes you look really cool and really professional, but does it make your best work? I'm not super convinced.
So you're not convinced that a nib grinding apprentice Padawan should have this as their test in order to, what did you call it, a nib Sith? No, that wouldn't be a Padawan, but to graduate from the academy.
Yeah, I think it's good to have experience with one. It's different. You definitely, I think, want to be able to use one, and even with my off the shelf Dremel, I've built a tool to stabilize it on a bench so that I can do the same thing as the bench grinders. So I think it's important to know what you like and what you don't like. And unless you try it, you just really not gonna know, right? So yeah, I think that's an interesting question. But then back to this Wagner topic, we also saw we saw a bunch of people, but we saw Kanesaki-san, and I had never met Kanesaki-san, so I didn't know what he looked like. He looks a lot younger than I thought he would have been. This guy is a young lad. He looks like he's in his early 20s. And he was selling these Bakelite pens, and he was using these vintage clips, and I didn't know who he was and he didn't know who I was. So we kind of did that awkward dance of like, oh, do you know about Bakelite pens? And I'm like, yeah, I know. By the way, who made these clips? Where are you sourcing them from? And like, oh yeah. And then after a while, we kind of, realized, or I realized who he was. And I was like, oh yeah, Kanesaki-san, I'm, a big fan of your work. And Alessa ended up getting a pen from him. And hopefully we'll be able to do an interview. So he doesn't speak the greatest English, and Alessa doesn't speak the greatest Japanese, but somehow we were able to communicate through that. And yeah, I think we're going to try to do an interview with him once he gets back from the US.
He's an interesting guy. I mean, he's incredibly talented, but I don't think he's fully like realizing what his potential market could be if he was a bit more if he was selling his or marketing his services to bigger audience, right? He could probably, because I asked him before, if you remember back at Tips, I asked him, like, if I had like a custom Urushi and I wanted to turn that into like a Japanese eyedropper Inkidomi, could you do that? And he said, yeah, no problem, just send it over, right? I think there's a lot of people overseas, especially in your SF pen community, who would love to have that, but they have no idea how to contact him, and he doesn't really make it easier to reach him, right?
Maybe that's what I should do with my custom Urushi.
I think that could be very interesting.
Anyway, that's I thought he was really generous with his information and with his time. We sat and we talked for like how it felt like hours, but I think it was like 45 minutes. And yeah, he was showing with some of his friends one of them has a cafe in Ginza, only seats 3 people, so we have to call and make a reservation in advance. But yeah, it was one of the more interesting Wagners. I saw Fuji-san of Eurobox. He bought a pen that I wanted to buy, so well, no hard feelings. Whoever gets there first, gets first dibs. But yeah, it was really one of the more interesting Wagners, and I'm really glad that I ended up going.
Yeah, those events are really like hit and miss, right? Sometimes it's hard to predict in advance, but sometimes you have all of the interesting people are there and a lot of tables, and it's also like sometimes you go to Mr. Pilot's table and it's just the same stuff he's been selling for the last 3 events, and sometimes he's like a chock full of all new kind of exotic pens that you haven't really seen before, right? So it's really hard to predict in advance. But the thing is, you have to pay your 2,000 yen before you even know, right?
Yeah. And all in all, there were 5, I guess 6 if you include Kanesaki-san, but he wasn't doing nib grinding at the event. But yeah, excluding the high schoolers, you had 5 to 6 nib grinders at the event, and that's a lot for like a 50 to 100 people event. Probably even less than 100.
And usually the nib grinds at Wagner are really cheap. Well, I mean, in a way you're partially paying for it with the entrance fee, but once you pay those 2,000 yen, the nib grinds can be quite affordable.
Yep. Whereas the quality, they have this exam that you have to take. I don't know the contents of the exam because I never bothered taking it. But going back to this high schooler, he says he's, working to pass this exam, and then once he passes this exam, then he's gonna start charging people. But I asked him, hey, are you interested in showing at these like pen shows or pen events? And he says, once I pass the exam, so he's really focused on passing that exam.
So who made up this exam?
I have no idea, but I'd imagine that Mori-san has some kind of a hand in it, right?
Because I can't imagine any nib grinders at Wagner making that much money, because you have to pay, I think, like 5,000 yen if you're a quote-unquote vendor, right? And there's a cap on how much you can charge for a nib grind at Wagner, which is like 1,500, 2,000 yen or something like that, right? So you have to be working very hard to make any kind of money at those events.
Whereas, as we already mentioned last time, people like Pen and Message and Nagahara, who I think they charge fairly similarly, they charge a lot of money, right? It's like $80 for a cursive attack. Obviously, the exchange rate is different now, but they are not cheap.
Yeah, Nagahara is different because he's the biggest name in the industry, right? Pen and Message, I don't know, maybe he has a good reputation, but it might be that he just considered like a add-on when you're buying a pen from him.
I know a lot of Kansai people go to the store specifically to get, stuff repaired or stuff ground. So I think he does have quite a good reputation.
Well, we have one member in our Tokyo community who's a big fan of Pen and Message.
That's right. All right. So next topic, moving on. I think let's go with the events theme. We had, of course, the Maruzen event. We mentioned that there are obviously Shishikura pens. That's a huge draw. They had new ink. This year they did the autumn event in a slightly different way. They staggered the event. So first was the Marunouchi event, and then like a week later they did the Nihonbashi event. We mentioned that these Shishikura pens, it almost feels like it's more and more difficult to see how appealing these pens would be, unless you see them in real life. And I have to say that the new one, this purple one, which is the summer one, I think that the colors that this pen has, right? The purple in the cap I think it's astounding. I think it's incredible. The body of the pen, I think it's I feel like personally for me, the color is almost too close to the cap, but then it lacks the same vibrancy. So it feels like it's a more dull version of the cap, which I know that's what she was really going for, because she intended to be kind of the ashes from the fireworks. But I feel like she could have either benefited from A, it just being the same color, or B, having a bigger contrast with the cap. But that's a personal taste thing. I think obviously these pens are still very great pens, and the inscription looks a lot better in person.
I think the lemon one was a bit more interesting, only because the color combination was a bit more unusual, and I really liked the nib engraving on the lemon one in particular. As you mentioned before, the cap is a bit too dark. I think it's a strange combination, but at least it's unusual. So I mean, bonus points for that. I think the most interesting pen at this Maruzen event was none of the sailors, but the Eboya, the Kininaru Eboya.
Was that the Nihonbashi one?
Yes, exactly. So I can't remember what the model name is, but it's the one with a tiny little cap, and then it's like the green. And in fact, it's the only one of the Maruzen pens that is now sold out.
Yeah. But they only made 10, right?
Yeah, something like that. It was a small number, yeah, but it's now sold out. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a nice one. They kind of did like this blocky gradation. Um, and I think I agree that the lemon version, so the not the wakaremon, which is the young lemon, uh, but the full size lemon. I think that nib engraving is really interesting because you really then get that reference that it's about lemon the novel rather than lemon just the fruit by itself. Obviously, there's a big inspiration there, but yeah, I do agree that the lemon was a little bit more appealing. Um, but yeah, the kind of draw for longtime collectors is probably, as you said, the Eboya.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And
You went today, right?
yeah, I went back today. I went to a few places today, but I went to Maruzen in Hobonichi today. It's kind of hard to tell that there's even an event going on. They don't advertise it that well, but yeah, there were a few tables. So there was one. So On had an event, and there weren't any customers there, and they had a lot of pens on display. So I got all like giddy of excitement. I went there and I asked, do you have any pens with the coarse nibs? And then he just looked at me as if I was an idiot and asked if I had a reservation. And I said, no, I don't have any reservation. Well, you can't buy anything if you don't have a reservation. Well, they said that if you wait until after like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, we're going to sell whatever is left. But I A, didn't want to wait that long, and B, I wasn't ready to, have an elbow fight with a very determined like Numa mob. I know what that looks like, and I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, and so do you think they were fairly popular, fairly successful?
Well, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. There weren't that many people there. And I also went over to Ohashiro because I had a question for Ohashiro. I wanted to know the story about the 21K nibs because, as we have talked about fairly recently, Ohashiro is known for still selling pens with 14K soft nibs, but recently using 21K nibs. I wanted to ask him if he can no longer get hold of 14K nibs, but he had a long conversation with an elderly customer, and he didn't seem too concerned with other customers. I was waiting for a good like 15 minutes, but then I gave up. So no, I didn't get any answers from Ohashiro. The pens he had on display were very nice though, but his pens are expensive, right? They start at like 70,000 yen, and then they go up. They're very expensive.
Well, we'll get another opportunity at the Tokyo International Pen Show, right? Is he showing this year?
I'm just assuming that he's always there.
I mean, he's been there for a few years, so
because that's sort of his whole business model. I mean, he is occasionally selling a few pens online, but I mean, his commitment to like online stores is that it's similar to like Bungokan Kobayashi, right? Like every few months they put a few online, but that's not really how they sell. They have other means, and in case of Ohashiro, it's mostly about going to these events. He goes to pretty much every event.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So we'll have another opportunity there. But then right across the street, we mentioned the timing, but there's also another event at Mitsukoshi. One of their, I think that it's their second really stationary event, since the kind of renewal of their stationery department, right? So you went today. What did you think?
I mean, one observation of the same thing as last time is that the little event area is separated from the actual stationery salon store, right? So if you just go to the store, it's hard to tell that there's an event going on. You have to walk a bit to this little event area. There wasn't much going on, I would say. And I think you mentioned when we looked at the Instagram post announcing the events, it looked a bit Bungo Joshi like, and I would say that it was true. This sort of like micro Bungo Josh in the sense that they were selling some stamps and some stickers and some washing. You had sort of, some people looking at that. It wasn't hugely crowded, but maybe because this was not the first day of the event, maybe there were more people there before. The only thing, and then of course you had this wooden pens. They didn't have like the big name, like it was a Nohara Koge, but it had one of the other wooden pen makers. But then of course they had Toyooka Craft. And they had announced, I think, prior to the event that they would have this custom event exclusive, like dark blue pen trays. And they had a big one with room for 60 pens, and that one was already sold out, which was a bit surprising because it was kind of expensive. It was like 67,000 yen, I believe, but that one was sold out already.
Yeah, that's pretty much in line with, I think, what the others cost as well. I went to Mitsukoshi yesterday, and I went with Hiroko. So, I guess spoilers. There's going to be a collaboration between them soon. How soon? I don't know, but that is the plan, to have some kind of collaboration between Toyooka Craft and Hiroko. And one of the interesting things that that Yamazaki-san said to Hiroko was that he was, I guess, as insistent as a Japanese kind of person speaking Japanese to another Japanese person can be. He kind of strongly suggested that he would very much like for Hiroko to keep just any part of the box at all, but not lacquer over a specific part. So it can be like a small part, but he said he would love to see like a design where there's at least one small part of the tray or the box or whatever it is where you could see the grain of the wood. And he said that it's because a lot of effort is put into keeping and maintaining that beautiful grain of the wood, and he said that a lot of customers appreciate that particular aspect of Toyooka Craft. So for him personally, he would like to have just any part where you could still see that graining of the wood. So I thought that was pretty interesting, how something that I might not have noticed, he kind of, it was like a source of pride for them.
That makes sense, but it sounds like a bit of a challenge for Hiroko. I mean, the obvious thought would be even just use transparent lacquer, but as we have talked about numerous times, transparent lacquer is not actually transparent. It has, for a while, it's going to have this brown, translucent color, right? I mean, I guess you can try to make it as thin as possible, or you could try to just not lacquer certain parts, but I think that would look strange because then the thickness wouldn't be even. So, yeah, I'm sure this would give Hiroko a bit of a headache, but she'll come up with something.
So I actually have an idea, which is a lot of these trays, at least for the bigger chests, right? The trays are you can pull them out completely. So my idea is, what if she lacquered the box but not the tray, so that the tray keeps the wood grain, and then you'd have a contrast between the wood tray and then the lacquered box. So I think that would be interesting, and it would, keep in the design, and you're not just gonna have a tray, right? Like the tray clearly fits in the box. So I think that could be something interesting that they could do.
Yeah, that could work. But I think if they were to do collaborate in a more organized way, I think it would make sense for Hiroko to buy or to get not the finished products, but before they put on their own like wooden lacquer, whatever you call it, right?
Well, I they did actually talk about this, and it's easier for Hiroko to have. I mean, it's not going to be the finished product because there's like gluing and stuff involved, but it's easier for Hiroko to have like wood where she doesn't need to prepare the base layer.
Okay.
So so I don't know how this would totally work out, but I think it's an exciting collaboration, and they're obviously they're both professionals, so we'll just have to wait and see, I suppose. Yeah. But I would agree with you. It's not as pen focused. It's mostly the surroundings, like accessory focused. And to be honest, Toyooka Craft, they seemed a little bit out of place with the price point. However, the people that I saw going to the fair, and not just our group, right, but there was like a couple other groups, they went specifically for Toyooka Craft. So I wonder if they're gonna if Mitsukoshi is gonna get any hints from this event, and maybe improve the next version of it. Maybe with they don't have to. What I'm saying is they don't have to fear the high price point.
Well, I will say, if anything, Toyooka Craft seemed to be the only vendor that was not out of place at Mitsukoshi, because they're like the stereotype of a Mitsukoshi or in general like a department store customer is an elderly, like well-off person, right? And it was exactly your stereotypical department store customer that went and looked at Toyooka Craft's products and bought them. Some bought them fairly quickly. So yeah, I think that they had a good show, and clearly the blue trays were very popular. So I think they did well.
Yeah, and they said they had sold out of a lot of items. So I actually bought one of the smaller trays. It's a 6 tray. I'm actually gonna consider asking him to. Gonna consider asking him making me either like a 5 tray or a 7 tray, because if you have 6, it's harder to arrange the number of pens that you can put in the tray, because it doesn't look even. You have to put an even number of pens in. So yeah, we'll see. But I'm very happy with my purchase.
I was so happy that the 60 pen one was sold out, because that was the one that was most appealing to me. It was pretty expensive, but that was by far the most interesting one. So if it had been available, it would have been a hard choice for me. So I'm glad.
Yeah. And the handles on that one is incredible.
And apparently it's more expensive than the regular one, not just because of the paint, but because that one uses like Japanese hinoki, which is apparently more expensive than whatever imported tree they use for the standard products.
Yeah. So I did ask why they've stopped their collaboration with Kingdom Note.
I asked exactly the same question. We probably got the same answer.
Okay, I don't know how much we want to reveal, but why don't you go first?
Well, so when I was there, it was just like one Toyooka rep, so not the president. So maybe you got more details, but they were strongly hinting that the fact that Kingdom Note had their occasional sales was not something that they were in favor of.
Yeah, so I didn't meet the president either. I think we both met Yamazaki-san. But I think that he told me kind of a little bit more than what I'm going to say right now. But I think Toyooka Craft, they've been around for a while, right? They're not a young company. The craftsman who's making it is like, he looks like he should have retired 20 years ago. But it seemed to me that they're realizing the power of their brand, and they're starting to really take more attention to protecting that brand image. So, something about working at Kingdom Note or their agreement with Kingdom Note, which it spanned almost a decade, I want to say, that stopped being something that was good for their brand. Nothing in the products themselves, but really about the image and the kind of company that they want to be. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, but I think, my interpretation of that is also that it just wasn't really a good fit, because it is true that Kingdom Note has products on sale every once in a while. It's usually around the end of the financial year that they want to get rid of like unsold inventory, so they put a lot of stuff on sale. But you don't, in general, you don't offer a discount of your best-selling products, right? I mean, there may be some exceptions where you have teasers, you want to get people into the store, but in general, I would say you wouldn't offer your best-selling products at a discount. You would. The things that you put on sale, you offer at a discount, are things that are generally slow-moving, and there were many times where Kingdom Note had Toyooka pen trays on sale, which to me just suggests that maybe this wasn't. I mean, Kingdom Note's customers weren't the ideal customers for Toyooka. It wasn't really just a good fit.
Well, I have to admit, I bought my chest because it was on sale.
Same here. I bought like 4 trays and only because I bought them on sale.
I might not have bought them if they were not on sale. But now that I have them, I would 100% buy them at full retail price. So, there's benefits and cons to of course everything. But yeah, it's always sad to see this collaboration, kind of these kinds of collaborations fade away. But taking their brand more seriously, I think that's always good. They told me that last time they went to the San Francisco Pen Show, which was in 2019, they brought a bunch of pens and they sold out on the first day. This time they brought 3 times what they had brought in 2019, and they sold out in the first day. So it's actually quite a dilemma. Albeit it's a great dilemma to have, but it's a dilemma. They're trying to figure out, okay, well, how much do we need to bring next time?
It's one thing to bring a few pens. It's something different to bring a big wooden pen trays, right? And there's a cost associated with that, so you better plan carefully. I have a feeling that Mr. Brad Dowdy has something to do with it. I think he bought like 100 pen tray, and I think he talked about that on a podcast or somewhere else. And I have a feeling that is how this current Toyooka craze in US started. Because as you mentioned, Toyooka Craft has been around for decades, right? And they have been, in Japan, they've been like a standard fixture at most of these pen events. And they are always popular in the same way that Eboya and Ohashido are popular. I mean, they have the loyal customers, they always do pretty well, but it's rare that that's like the main attraction, right? So they are, doing okay, but they are not like they're rock stars, right? But suddenly at this, based on your report at the San Francisco Pen Show, they were like almost like the main attraction.
Oh yeah, they were crazy, wild. Just so many people went to buy their stuff, and it might be that they can't get Toyooka Craft regularly, right? Like we can. So there is a difference in that as well.
Yeah. So I have a feeling that Mr. Dowdy has something to do with this.
All right. So next topic, moving on.
I want to talk a little bit about paper, because we talked in a previous episode about Hobonichi 2022, and I think you mentioned that there was this announcement that they were not going to use Sanzen paper for the 2022, or rather for next year's planners. They were going to use what they called like the same old, or like the standard, whatever paper they have used in the past. And we were talking about that. We were wondering whether that means the number 7 paper or the number 9 paper. And the argument in favor of the number 7 paper is that is what they have been using in the past. The argument against it is that, as you pointed out, that paper has been out of production since late 2019, so it seems surprising that they will just find like a big stash of number 7 paper, enough for a whole year's worth of Hobonichi, right?
Yeah.
So I was very curious about that, so I went a few days ago to Loft. For some reason, Loft seems to have, they must have some kind of special deal with Hobonichi, because I think they had them like before anyone else, right? So I went to Loft in Ginza, or maybe it's Yurakucho, but somewhere between Ginza and Yurakucho. And as usual, I brought a bunch of pens inked up with various difficult inks. So they always have these like sample notebooks, sample planners you can like scribble in. And I like did my little paper test in all of them. And I think, by the way, like a side note, but if you go to like any like stationery store in Japan where they have like these notebooks that you can write in, it's always going to be like one page with like a Fudefan was here. I've written in all of them with my various pens. So I did some quick tests at Loft, and yes, based on those quick tests, it looked like number 7. But I wanted to do some close-up photos and more tests. So I bought, being the cheapskate I am, I bought the very cheapest one, which is like the Day Free.
Yep.
Day Free in the small one in A6 size. So I bought that one and I did some more tests at home, and I am almost entirely certain that this is number 7 paper for 2 reasons.
Mm-hmm.
The first reason is that there's this one ink, we talked about that before, but there's this one Kakimori ink that behaves noticeably different on number 7 paper and number 9 paper. So on number 7 paper, it is this like vibrant red, and the edges are all smooth in the sense that there's no feathering, and because the ink doesn't get absorbed into the paper, it starts pooling, and that gives you a little bit of sheen once it dries. While on the 9 paper, it looks lighter and less saturated, so basically like more washed out because it gets more absorbed. And also because it gets more absorbed, you get a bit of feathering, and you get basically no sheen. So I always have some number 7 paper and some number 9 paper for testing. So I inked up a pen with that difficult ink, and I tried number 7 paper and tried number 9 paper, and I tried the Hobonichi paper, and I would say the Hobonichi paper behaved exactly like the number 7 paper in that it was vibrant, it was smooth, and you had sheen.
So what do you think this means about, like, do you think they just bought a ton of Hobonichi number 7, and they just had so much left over?
I'm not sure. I would love to know the answer to that question. I genuinely don't know. My suspicion is that I think it's more likely that they just had their own inventory rather than that Sansen had some secret stash that's you could buy only if your name is Hobonichi. I think it's more likely that Hobonichi had their own. Just for like business continuity, basically, it's like they had enough paper.
Yeah.
By the way, this is super geeky, but there's one more test you can do to tell 7 and 9 apart. Like if you take a sheet of paper and you hold it up against like a window during the day or just in a light source, you get sort of this like X-ray image where you can see like the watermarks, and if it's laid paper, you can see these lines.
Right.
And then you see like this like pattern or texture which looks different depending on what paper it is. So on the number 7 paper, you have this sort of more coarse texture, while the number 9 paper has more fine-grained texture. So they look noticeably different, and you can see that the Hobonichi paper has exactly the same kind of pattern texture as the number 7. So I am convinced that Hobonichi 2022 is number 7. Just one more thing about that, which people might not realize, but in addition to planners, Hobonichi actually also sells notebooks. This is a bit confusing because they have this, as we covered like 1 year ago, they had this Hobonichi Noto. You remember that one? This staple-bound, cheap, like campus-like notebook.
Yep, I remember.
That's definitely not Tomoreva. That's some cheap, like campus-like paper, which is kind of okay, not very like Instagrammable, but if you're gonna take notes, then that's fine. But they also sell this thick paper, thick notebooks that basically looks like a Day 3 or a Hobonichi A6, but it's just grid paper. That's like Hobonichi, Hoga Note, I think it's called.
Yeah.
That one, which is like 900 yen for A6, is also Tomoe. It's the same paper as in the planners, and it's cheaper than the planners. And if you are in a number 7 hoard mode, yes, get some Hobonichi notebooks.
And I found a I guess this goes back to the planner, but there's a product called Hobonichi Weekly, and it's this super slim book, and it's just the weeks. There's like no individual day pages. It's just the weeks, and I'm hoping to try to use that. Hopefully that will be more successful than my past 2 years of Hobonichi. But that should also be Tomoe River 7.
Yeah. By the way, did you buy Hobonichi Planner to actually use as a planner, or did you just buy it because you wanted to test the paper?
I bought it to use as a planner, as I did in the past 3 years. I've not been very successful with it.
That's the same problem I have. Like the January pages are almost full, and the February pages are not as impressive, and then the March onward are empty.
I think I just need to understand how to use it. It's just it's just a matter of knowing how I want to, really use these products.
Yeah, I think you have to get used to it. And for me, I mean, for like appointments, events, I much prefer a Google Calendar. I mean, to me, if an appointment isn't in Google Calendar, then it doesn't exist. My wife uses only paper planners. I mean, we have this shared Google Calendar. She never ever looks at it. And if it's not in her planner, then the event doesn't exist. So I may need to learn from her.
Yeah, it's really nice. I think what I do is I try to use it for the first few days, and then afterwards it's just a testing notebook for like my inks and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's how many people end up using Hobonichi, especially after, as you say, after the first few months. You don't have enough events or things to write in it, but you have very nice papers. You might as well use it for scribbles and ink swatches or other things.
Yeah. All right. Lastly, let's talk about this. It's not really a Japanese maker, but it is a collaboration, an unexpected collaboration. And that is that Mont Blanc has a new ink. Now, we don't know if this ink is like, an actual new ink, or if it's just a rebranded ink, as I think Fountain Pen Memes has reported on extensively. But the packaging is absolutely brilliant. So we are talking about the Mont Blanc Naruto collaboration.
I haven't seen that.
Okay, so I actually sent it to our stationary group chat on Instagram.
I missed it.
But let me see if I can send it to you again. But this is ridiculous. So there's a company called Fritz Schimpf, and it's not their exclusive, but that's really where I first found it. This pen supposedly looks a lot like Mont Blanc Lucky Orange, which is kind of like a nice bright kind of orange color. So that's the picture. It's ridiculous.
Okay. I would have been less surprised if this was like a toner limbs ink.
Yeah. But given the popularity of Naruto, I mean, it's not so super surprising, right? I mean, it's surprising if it didn't exist. But now that it exists, I'm like, oh, okay. I can see where that's going.
I understand that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that there's an ink, there's a Naruto themed ink. I'm surprised that it's coming from Mont Blanc of all makers.
What I heard is that there might be an accompanying pen.
This is even more interesting. Okay.
don't quote me on that, but if there is a Naruto Mont Blanc, I'm buying that pen. I've never even watched Naruto. I just think it's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it is an unexpected collaboration for sure. I love it. I love it. And I think our friend, as you said, Fountain Pen Memes is going to have a lot of fun with this.
Yeah. So, listeners, let us know on the Instagram post. Would you buy a Naruto Mont Blanc? Let us know in the comments of that Instagram post. All right, I think that's really all we have time for today. As usual, we wrote 3 lines in the show notes, and then we went over an hour. So that is what it is. But I hope that it's been a fun episode. I believe 66. Again, please help us spread the word. Tell your family members, tell your friends, tell your brothers, tell your sisters, tell your teachers. Tell the local high school student. Maybe they're going to get into nip grinds. Who knows? But yeah, it's been a blast, and thank you, Jacob, for putting up with me for the past hour.
Same.
My pleasure every time. My name is CY. You can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram and TikTok at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob. I'm a Fudofan on Twitter, and I have a blog at Fudofan.com, and I'm on TikTok as well.
Very good. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.